There we go. Okay. Technology works. Okay. So today in the executive summary, we're going to cover three key areas. We're going to see some slight changes to some of the structure of the executive summary, and we'll start going through those, and also start trying to address the question about the sales center transaction. Okay. The first one is that reserve funds. The community currently holds a total of $3.489 million in reserve funds, and that's spread across two bank accounts. The main account is the investment account that we have with Fifth Third's account, and with the Pacific Premier Bank account, which is used to write the checks for reserve projects. As of 4/26, we had a 3.07% yield on our account, and that will gradually keep going higher. It came down a little bit when we liquidated some money to manage our cash flow, but it'll go up because we're starting to see treasuries go up again. So we'll start getting our 50,000 treasury bonds back into some higher rates. Based on the cash flow analysis that we did that I mentioned at last month's meeting, we needed to put some money into the Pacific Premier Bank account in order to start paying some bills. So what we did were two key transactions in early April, which will show up in the April financial report, which we'll review next month. The first one is that we have liquidated what was called the telecom account. That is a residual account from when the funds were approved for the construction of this building. And now that that project has been completed, we've closed that account and moved those funds into our main reserve account. So they're still being used for reserve activities. The second thing we did is we took $200,000 out of the Fifth Third account so that we could get the account balance up to pay for the anticipated cash flow needs out of reserves for the next several months. One of the things that we're starting to do, and you'll see at the end of this of these charts, is the Finance Committee is going to be working with Associate to do a forecast going forward on reserve budget, and we'll be reporting every month on the money spent out of the reserve account so we can keep a running total of how those monies are being spent for the community. Hurricane Ian, obviously Chuck will go into more detail about the details in his general manager's report, but the restoration efforts are still ongoing. There's several quotes. I believe we're looking at one or two quotes today as part of the board meeting, and we're still assessing what the total financial impact is going to be. We have a SBA FEMA loan approved. We'll talk about more of that in the next slide. And the risk committee is still working with the insurance carrier to try to maximize our insurance claim payout. With respect to the budget, the audit for the 2022 financials are underway. The sales transaction is part of that audit process. So what we're waiting on from the auditor is the final determination about what, if any, we owe on capital gains tax for that transaction. Once that's completed, then we'll be able to do a full accounting of the sales center transaction, which would essentially consist of the gross proceeds from the sale, less what we had to pay the attorney fees, and if we have any tax liability associated with capital gains for that transaction. To answer the other part of the question, what we did is when we put the reserve budget together last year, we assumed a portion of the proceeds of the sales center, of this transaction, would stay in the reserve account, and that is how we determined the level of the reserve assessment that we did for this fiscal year. And I'm more than happy to talk about this offline and go through any more questions with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Right now the budget's on track. We'll talk about a few issues that we've come across so far. I think we're in a very positive trend with delinquencies when we show you those numbers. And I think in a significant part of improving our visibility on our financials, both the treasurer and the president now have online access to view the account balances and activity associated with our two main Pacific Premier accounts. So we can keep track of the activity, monitor cash flows, and lastly, I'm still working with associates so that we can work out a longer-term plan relative to bank account strategies and trying to establish some sweep account strategy so that we can keep our balances below 250 and still protect our money. Hurricane Ian financial impact. Right now, the current total is at $1.24 million. We have some major quotes outstanding for permanent fence repair, tennis courts, additional landscape and irrigation repair that's been uncovered that needs to be done. Right now, spitballing, we think that's going to add about another $350K to the total. As I mentioned, the insurance claim is ongoing. We're still waiting to get those final numbers so we can report back to the community what we believe our final insurance payout will be. We did formally receive approval for a loan from the SBA based on the Hurricane Ian disaster authorization. It is for $855,100. Very complicated formula the government went through. I can't get it to add up, but that's the number they came up with. It's 1.875% over 15-year payback. First payment would be due 12 months after the funds are dispersed to the community, and the monthly payments would be $5,700 a month. Right now, we first passed we got 11 documents from the SBA. They had to be reviewed and, to go through before we made the final decision on closing the loan. First, the risk committee took a look at that. They made some comments. Based on their comments, we forwarded all 11 documents to the attorney, and our attorney has uncovered some issues that we're currently in discussion with the SBA about. So I'm going to say right now it's about 50-50 in terms of whether or not we'll find these terms acceptable for the community. So once we have a better ruling between our attorney and the SBA attorney, we'll be able to report back on the efficacy of the loan. Very key, the Finance Committee will be presenting to the community at the May 27th board meeting the recommendation for the Hurricane Ian assessment. Also on today's meeting, there is a motion to set up a special board meeting on June 1st for the board to review the assessment, the SBA loan, and to vote on whether or not we'll go forward with both of those items. So we'll look at, we have an obligation to get a communication out to the community 14 days prior to the 1st, so that will go out probably via email to all the owners, outlining the assessment recommendation. It'll be formally presented to the board on May 27th, so that'll give us another week of discussion and debate on it, and it'll be voted on June 1st. Year-to-date financials. Right now, 3 months into 2023, we don't see any overall red flags. We think just with the timing of some of the receipts, we see some variances. We do see I'll talk about the variances on the expense side, but I think generally we're pretty much on track with the budget so far. The one word of caution is that we're still not seeing an improvement in house sales in the community. That's the main driver of monies into our reserve funds. Even though we started the assessment, 60-70% of the money going into reserves this year will be coming from house sales. So right now, year to date, we have 13 sales in the community, 24 were budgeted. We'll have to keep an eye on this, and this will have an impact probably into next year's reserve budget in terms of how we look forward to things. And quite frankly, we may have to start looking at maybe taking some of the things that we were planning on doing this year and not doing them so that we can stay in line with the monies available to us. I'll go in more detail, but we did identify 3 issues year to date in expenses. The first issue that we identified is in repair and maintenance. There was a bookkeeping error. Approximately $16,500 was put into repair and maintenance when it should have gone into the account associated with Hurricane Ian repair. That's why we're showing the variance in repair and maintenance. Once you take that out, repair and maintenance pretty much is on track with what's been budgeted for a monthly basis. Neighborhood landscape, my favorite topic. DTE has not submitted an invoice that we can pay against for irrigation maintenance for the first 3 months of this year. So Associate has been working with them to get it. What they haven't done is they just did a one-line invoice instead of breaking it down by neighborhood, which is how we need to do it for accounting purposes. So the Associate is working to get that budget, to get that invoice set up properly. Once we get that, we'll pay it, but that's why it looks like we're ahead on neighborhood landscape and irrigation at this point. We're actually, when you look at the line item invoice that they sent us, we're about on track year to date with them. The last thing, my second favorite topic about this community, LCEC. Their smart meter doesn't work for the pool. So they send someone to do a manual checking. When no one's around, they leave, don't come back, don't call. So we've been getting like Zippo bills. So that's why it looks like we're ahead on utilities. So Chuck is and the Associate team are in the process of getting that trued up, and we'll see that all zeroed out in April. The variance on the insurance line is related to a yearly payment associated with the excess liability insurance. So when you amortize that over the course of the year, we're still pretty much in line with all of these expenses. The operating balance sheet is showing pretty normal activity at this point. Nothing is sticking out as a red flag on that. Likewise, the reserve balance sheet is still accurately reflecting all the reserves associated with the community. There is a decrease in assets from month to month because that shows the significant outflow that has been going based on Hurricane Ian payments, repair payments that we've been making. Delinquencies. Total delinquencies for the community are $97,000. It's at a 13-month low. So basically from when we've started tracking them with Associate in January of 21 to now, this is the lowest total we've had. Of the largest chunk of delinquencies is in the 120 plus days. And of that, 3 accounts were responsible for over 50% of those delinquencies. One of those accounts is currently in settlement with bankruptcy, and that's going to readjust the totals once the bankruptcy proceedings are completed there. So overall, I think the Associate has been working with their team in Austin and with our lawyer to make sure that we get through and get these resolved as quickly as possible. This is a new piece of information we're adding for the report to the community. Every month now we'll be tracking the spend against the reserve funds. And right now what I've got it broken down is in 2 major categories. The outflows out of reserves to pay for Hurricane Ian repairs. And you can see that that was approximately $400,000 of cash out over the last 3 months. And then what I call just reserve study. These are activities that were approved based on the reserve study that needed to be done. And the last item are discretionary. So these are things that weren't on the reserve study, but that the community made a decision that we should make an investment in that. So right now, the budget for this year is $689,000 for reserve study and discretionary spend. We broke it out with $75,000 for discretionary spend and $614 to cover the items recommended in the reserve study that we looked at last year. Right now, we've done 104 out of the 689 and 2K out of the discretionary. So, and we'll be keeping track of this, and we have a process to go through and prioritize any request. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be sitting down with Chuck and team and sort of prioritizing the items on the reserve study to see which ones we can do and which ones maybe we can shift out so we can minimize the impact to the reserve account going forward. All set. Go Bills.
Quick comment, Bill.
Yes.
This is great stuff here.
Oh,
this last one's really perfect.
Thank you.
Very appreciative of that. Agreed.
Yeah, if it weren't for Ian, we might have started a bit sooner.
Were your questions answered okay about the sales center
Yes.
money? Okay, good. Now it's time for our general manager's report. Chuck Hill.
Okay, sure this works? You're good? All right. First thing I'd like to report on is the stormwater field report for dry season has been completed, and there are no outstanding issues with our stormwater system. There were some minor issues that were identified, and they were corrected at time of inspection. The stormwater system is inspected in its entirety twice a year, once during dry season and once during wet season. So that's good news. The hurricane repairs continue. We finished up on the signs. We're waiting for the sign company to finish up signs and get them installed. We do have some additional trees which will be in new business, and I'll pass that out. Lake 2 erosion repair, the funding was put in place for the initial payment. I think we're in the permit process now at the county, and then once that kicks off, we should see that kind of a couple of weeks worth of work. So we're staying in touch with Solitude to make sure that they're up on this. There are some additional irrigation lines that came to our attention that we have to get some quotes on to get those repaired along the surf side. Perimeter fence, we're pricing out a replacement shed. We lost 3 sheds in the hurricane that most of our maintenance equipment was stored in, and we hope to have some numbers finished up for that. And we still are working on light structures for tennis and pickle and the basketball court structures. And last but not least, fence repair, which will be covered in new business. Next topic is security. The security guards are usually here from 7 to 3. They're now 6 to 2. And the first 3 hours they're spending here at the amenity center. There's been some issues that we've had to deal with, and until further notice, they will be patrolling this area. They will be asking for ID, identification, and non-residents that are not accompanied by a owner will be asked to leave the premise. And this is just a reminder that everybody, as the rules and regulations state, you need to carry your ID with you. Obviously, for access to the restroom, the pool, tennis courts, this building here, that's the reason why you need to have it on you. If you don't have it, the guard will ask you to leave and go get it. Again, this is something that needs to be done because of issues that we've been faced with that we have to deal with. Gate strikes. For the month of April so far, we've had 12. Gate strikes lead to gate malfunctions. And I'd like to thank residents for contacting us during regular business hours to let us know that, and that's where most of the gate strikes happen, is during the day, that we can get out there quickly and assess the issue and hopefully put it back together again. But there has been some malfunctions on these gates that have just the same gates that have been struck. So we're doing everything we can. We are identifying the people that strike the bars. They are issued an invoice for the issue. In some cases, if there's enough damage, they're issued a damage invoice. And also guests and vendors of owners. We've been able to track down a few of those. And we just recently received notification from Lee County's the bus that hit the gate. We're finally getting their payment, so they're moving through. For March, resident access for the month of March is very similar to the prior month. Pine Island residents, 77,000 entries. Veterans, 92,000, and Surfside, 27,000. Guests at Pine Island, 5,000, and veterans, 14,000. So those numbers are in line with what we've saw in the last couple of months. So 12 gate strikes, you know, with that number of volume, I guess it's not so bad, but it does hurt our pockets when we have to get those gates repaired. On the compliance front, Chris Harris is our compliance officer. We've been walking some of the neighborhoods and meeting with some of the people and neighborhood reps, and we are issuing a general letter. It's not a friendly reminder, it's a general letter that outlines the need for the owner to remove any loose tile debris or loose tarps that have been identified. We are entering yet, I hate to say this, but we're getting closer and closer to hurricane season, and there have been times where we found tarps in the lakes because the wind has picked up and removed the tarp. And also from a safety concern, if you've got loose tiles up there, you may want to ask your roofer to go up there and remove those loose tiles so that no further damage to your property nor your neighbor's property takes place. So that's just a general letter. It's not part of our violation, but it is just a safety concern that we have in the community. ARC administration, which we're responsible for. Obviously, you can see we've got some roof here. We've got a large volume of ARC applications that we handle, and we get that ready to be reviewed by the ARC committee. We take in deposits for said applications that are not roof related, and we actually have to enter it into our system. So that administrative side of it has been borne by our compliance officer, and now we're starting to realize that he needs to be out in the village looking for compliance issues and not so much doing administrative work. So we are doing some load balancing inside our staff to see if we can help mitigate the workload on Chris. And then we can get him out. The goal is to get him out for a half a day in the mornings in the community, and then the other half of the day he's processing ARC applications. So the volume of roofs are still anywhere from 6 to 10 a day. Every one of those come with a question of some sort. Why does my roofer need workman's comp? You know, who do I make a check out to? I mean, there's just, you know, a 10 to 15 minute interaction with the owner just to make sure that they've got it all set and ready to go. So it gets to the ARC, is, you know, in the right fashion so they can do their evaluations. So that you'll see that change coming up. If you haven't attended Coffee and Conversations on Friday mornings, which has been well attended, we are now starting something called Sip and Conversation, which is, the first one's going to be May 4th. This is at 7 p.m. This is really to try to provide the same access and community spirit and meet some owners and talk to Lifestyle and the general manager. And we're going to do that. We're going to start at May 4th at 7 o'clock. So if you're still working like me and you can't make coffee and donuts at 10:30 on Friday, we hope to see you at 7 o'clock on May 4th. Back to security, this Pelican building has been full-time access card required. It had been open during the day so people can have free access. Obviously, for some issues that we've been incurring, again, around security, we've decided to have the doors locked. You have to use your access card to gain entry into the building. It is locked down for the evening at 7 o'clock, unless there's a special event that's planned, and we'll make arrangements to make sure that the doors are open for that event. A couple more things. On May 8th at 10 to 12 o'clock, Lee County Sheriff's Department will be providing associate Sandoval staff an active shooter and active shooter training course. which will be at 2 hours. The office will be closed during that time, so the entire staff can attend this active shooter training. And this is kind of something that we attempted to do before the hurricane. There's been, if you've seen in the news in Atlanta, there's been some issues where a disgruntled owner came and shot the property manager in Atlanta. So as property managers, we're trying to make sure that we're trained to make sure that we have the right skill set to be able to defuse or kind of mitigate that situation. So thanks to Lee County Sheriff's Department, they have a community affairs department that just specializes in Lee County condominiums and HOAs, and it's a free resource for us, so we're anxious to have that. It's open to anyone who can attend. Obviously, we want the staff to, it would be most beneficial, but if you can make it, that'd be great. Also, at some time years ago, Lee County did provide, the Sheriff's Department did provide some seminars, and we've asked them to actually provide those as well, both some in the evening so that people that work during the day can attend, and also during the day. So those seminars we discussed are everything from, elderly people being scammed, self-defense, any of those, a whole bunch of topics that they were willing to come here and provide that training for the people, for us. So that's my report, and thank you very much.
Okay, question that came up earlier on the ARC deposits. How do we check that out?
I'll take that offline.
Okay, so evidently that the county got messed
Yeah.
up, right?
Can I ask a question? The stormwater inspection, was that the annual one that's done by Avalon?
Yes.
What was the cost of that? Do you know off the top of your head?
I thought I'd get back to you.
No, that's fine. My question, and I'm looking at Bill, was this was one of Jim Swiggert's big projects, and so I guess my direct question is, we're paying 100% of that bill, correct?
Yeah, and it's something that, when I have a free few minutes, because the report itself actually is very well done. And matter of fact, the report for Coralina is beautiful, the pictures and everything. The problem is that we're paying for that, and we need to find a way to recoup that. And there's been some type of trail, I guess when the developer put this whole thing together, there may or may not have been proper documentation to encumber the strip mall, Coralina, and all of which, should have been administered. When the developer kind of turned this over, should have turned that over as well and said, once a year you need to send an invoice to the owner of the strip mall. I think Woody's or Torch is also segregated into its own. Fifth Third Bank has their own. So it is one of those things where we hate to engage the attorney whenever we have to, but this might be one of those things where we might want to ask Brian Caves to take a look at this to see how we can challenge the status quo and try to recoup some of this. From my knowledge, only because of my participation with Somerville, is Somerville used to be issued an invoice as well for their portion of the stormwater issue. So I know they were trying to bill. It was probably, they probably were seeing it, throwing it away. I'm sure the strip mall over here has changed ownership a couple of times. There's a dentist out here too, also. So it's a project. It's a project that we're going to have to get the right talent on this to dig and find out how we can turn this around.
Unfortunately, that's the way I was kind of going with this, is because there was a gentleman's agreement, but nothing ever executed in writing. And I would highly recommend the honey versus vinegar technique. I would suggest that we go to our friends and say, this is a benefit that benefits you as a property owner, and we'd like to ask you to contribute your fair share. I think that may be the approach to get some action on it. That would just
Is the
be my recommendation.
largest Coralina? Is that the largest or?
No, the mall.
The mall.
The mall.
The mall would.
But unfortunately, the mall has been parceled up. It's not one big parcel anymore. It's been chopped up into different sales. And so when ownership transfers, the agreement's not with us, so they're not paying a bill that they get. So there's not a simple solution, but I'm just thinking that maybe a knock on the door or a phone call using the honey technique may be a way to do it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, gather up. So the first question they're gonna say is, well, show me the homework here. What are you saying? So it's just a matter of compiling the intelligence, so when we do have that knock on the door conversation, we've got all the facts in front of us.
Because at the end of the day, that proactive approach of monitoring the stormwater system that we have, I believe was positive for us during Ian. And so, I mean, that's something that's really positive and proactive. And I think it could be done in a way where we can get a buy-in from those particular folks. Sorry, Marilyn, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I'm done, thank you.
Is there not a way when you contract, or when we contract with Avalon Engineering, to just do us rather than including Coralina and the mall and others?
I think the way that, it has to be done by jurisdiction. I'm not sure if it's Cape Coral or Lee County, but we're on the hook to do it legally until we can legally disperse it to the other entities. So we got to get our name off of that. We have to change something to get us off. We just couldn't.
And would not Avalon Engineering know how to do this?
We asked it. They know how to do the inspections. They're great engineers. They did a great job. I did ask them how to parse this out, and it's above their pay grade. Somebody else has to kind of figure that out. In their defense, they said, this is something that should have been handled at turnover when the developer turned this over. So,
You got any friends in the city that might know something about this sort of thing?
Well, stormwater, does come under the city of Cape Coral.
Right.
Have you or anybody in your office contacted the city yet? If not, the present acting city manager was the utilities director. And so I can call Mike tomorrow if
Please,
somebody...
yeah, let's do it.
yeah. To answer your question, anybody in the office would have been me, and we just got the stormwater report a couple of days ago. And Todd and I talked about this probably a few months ago about how do we unravel this thing here. So it's right now my focus has been on Ian, but this isn't going to go anywhere. We can.
What kind of money are we talking about?
Again, I was asked the same question. I have to go back and see what the invoice is.
20 grand.
Yeah, it's not in the
That's a lot.
hundreds of thousands. It's probably 20 grand. But we also have money reserved from sewer viewer if there was an issue found, that we also have budgeted money to appropriately deal with it.
Okay, let's see what,
Would we be legally required to handle that for the other entities that are in question, the way it is considered now?
I think the way it's considered now, they don't see any other entities, they just see us.
Okay.
So probably ask for the standard.
Yes.
well, this is something we don't want to stop.
No,
We need it.
we have to, yeah.
So let's figure out how we can get other people to help pay for it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Either that or get the jurisdiction of their areas transferred to them.
Yes.
That
I mean,
would be the
there's
best way.
There's two approaches. One is, we get them to pay, which is got an administrator overhead, or
That makes sense.
you get them to assume their
Assume their role,
responsibility.
yes.
I mean, you gotta try both tracks.
Are we connected to them in any way, to the stormwater system?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the
So-
stormwater system goes from Fifth Third Bank. I mean, everything kind of runs to our
That's
lakes.
what I thought, yeah, okay. All right, anything else, Jeff?
No?
Okay, let's move to Mr. Ott to talk about the RFP for landscape.
Okay, last month's board meeting, when we talked about the RFP, a lot of people felt that the entire RFP was too large to present to vendors. So the landscape committee got back together and we decided we would break it up into two pieces. And the first piece would be presenting a statement of work to the various vendors and asking them, based on this statement of work, are you interested in bidding on a new contract? And based on their response, if they come back and say yes, they are, we would then provide them with the entire RFP that basically says, here's the parameters that we want to work within in order to come up with various bids. So unless there's any questions from the board, I would like to move forward and make a proposal that we approve this so that we can start getting it out to various vendors. So
I'd make a motion to approve it.
I second.
Any discussion?
Quick discussion, one heck of a job. It was painful, I know, but it's something that's needed, so thank you to the folks that put the time and effort into it.
Yes.
Absolutely. This committee was formed to go after a really tough problem, and they've done a lot of work on it. So, thank you, committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay. The new business, are we going to talk about SBA loan?
Well, yes, that's the motion, yes.
Okay.
Motion.
The motion, yes. So let me read the motion. Whereas the Sandoval Community Association, referred to as the association, is in the process of accounting for the total expenses incurred or to be incurred for the removal of debris and the repair of the damage to the common areas of the community. They were caused by Hurricane Ian on September 28, 2022, and the association has received an approval for a disaster loan from the Small Business Administration, loan number DLB 487389105. The association agrees to conduct a special board meeting on June 1st, 2023 at 6 p.m. with the following agenda items. Consideration and vote on a one-time assessment for the Sandoval community to pay for the expenses incurred or to be incurred for the removal of debris and the repair of damages to the common areas of the community that were caused by Hurricane Ian, net of any received or planned insurance claim payments. Second agenda item, consideration and vote on accepting SBA loan number DLB 487389105 and its terms.
And that's the motion.
And that's the motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Yes, Marilyn, you have discussion?
The other part of that will be the assessment. Is that a separate motion, or is that?
No, this is the only motion on the table
Okay.
today to authorize a special meeting for us to vote on the assessment
For
and the
June.
loan on June 1st.
It's a place setter.
Okay.
We're setting a
Yes.
place for getting.
So
this
because
going.
we have obligations to notify the community and just
Okay.
trying to get it all laid out.
That's good.
That's very reasonable.
Yes.
It's good to participate in like that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Bill. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
See
no.
everybody on June 1st.
Great, thank you. Okay, fence quotes.
Fence quotes. In your packet, you'll find the reserve expenditure request. 4 quotes were brought in. One was disqualified because it did not include removal of the damaged fence. And therefore, we have 3 quotes. Skyway fence, Moore Sports Group, and All American Fence and Gate. The quotes are $147,883 for Skyway. Moore Sports Group was $232,000, and All American Fence and Gate was $275,880. We've checked their references. We just went through risk management. They've signed off on the purchase agreement. We have their certificate of insurance. And I think you spoke to them today.
I did.
So I think they are
You know the Skyway, right?
yeah, reasonably priced, and we've been sitting here waiting for fence quotes for quite some time, so.
Yeah, I talked to the Skyway guy, mainly just reality check with him. And, you know, they're a company out of, I guess, out of Pittsburgh, but they moved down here for 2 years because of post-end construction, and both they're here in Fort Myers. I asked him about his supply. He gets the supply locally. There's no, he said there's not a limit in supply. They can do it right away. And I talked about pricing, and he said, look, you've got references, and I'll tell you what else I will do. I'll go ahead and do that whole long fence along Surfside. You don't pay me anything yet till you check it out and like it, and then if you do a third of it, pay me for the third, and then thereafter. So I think that relieves a lot of safety issues. We get to actually see the work before we're fully obligated. So I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
Certainly sounds it's less likely that we run into the same issue we have at the
Like we
budget.
did at George, yes.
Do we have references?
Yes, we did. And those, Brian called them today.
And Brian did check.
Yeah, Pinchers was one of them. There's I was trying to find it here. I've got an email buried in some of this paper here that actually has the actual names. There's a company out of Naples, which is on the large side. There's also a condominium complex in Fort Myers that I mean, obviously they're not going to give us references that are going to say disparaging things against them, but the ones that we did speak to had, you know,
Positive and,
That's a huge job.
yes, I know it is.
For a fence company. And so almost no one has had it on the street. But he sounded like he knew what he was doing. But this is your recommendation that we go with this, what happened to be almost $90,000 less than the second bidder? Yeah.
They've been very responsive. They were out here quickly to do their quotes. So far, I mean, I didn't have to, usually I have to ask them for insurance documentation and follow up. They sent it immediately. I'll say that we've never done a fence project this size, so I can't tell you that I've worked with any of these folks. I do know that More Sports did the tennis courts. Unfortunately, they're a little priced higher, but they are still in consideration for the tennis court repair and light structures of basketball courts. So
I would think that because of this, we need to make sure the caveat on payment is clear in our discussion, our contract.
oh yeah.
So that way we protect ourselves. Okay. Yes, sir.
So I just think that for the community, we need to discuss the size of this project. We're talking about 7,208 feet of fence being replaced. So it's not a small project. How are we going to oversight this project?
We're gonna, Brian, and just like we're doing right now, we kind of doing it ourselves, unless you want to pay for a project manager.
I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
My favorite line is the lowest bid is not necessarily the best bid. And I have some concerns that the low bid and the high bid is a delta of $128,000, which tells me there's a red flag. We're missing something somewhere. And so the other part of this is, and your time is valuable, Brian's time is valuable, and I'm concerned with the size and scope of all of our projects now approaching 2 million or probably over that we do need an independent arm to manage these projects. And and again, Chuck, it's more about your time so you can do your daily activities. But I'm kind of piggybacking on what Bill's saying is I really do think we need to consider an independent project manager, totally independent, that can make sure that these things are being done to specs, to codes, etc., that we get quality versus something that we go, oh my. And that's my biggest concern, because along with the fence, there's also the erosion issue is the irrigation issue and the landscaping issue. And the worst thing we can have happen without a project manager is we put a fence up that has to be torn down because of some type of irrigation issue or an erosion issue. So those would be my comments. I understand we've got a nice bid there, but it just, to me, it's a red flag when there's a $128,000 difference.
If we take,
No, she had her hand up.
go ahead.
If there were not an effort to see what kind of work they do with part of the fence before, I mean, we're approving it in steps, as I understand it. Isn't that what you said, that we're improving the move forward in steps?
I didn't say, I don't think it's exactly that. I think we're approving them as a vendor, but we have an out
Okay,
if the steps aren't right.
if the steps aren't right, we have an out.
Yes.
Okay. Because of Ian, and because of just work that I've had done on a house that I don't own, that I own that isn't in Sandoval, the prices have been all over the place. And I went with low bids, and it ended up being fine. And I think it's maybe hurricane connected with the numbers being so far apart. And I did go the lowest and the second lowest, and it was about 84,000. I don't know if in fact this low bid should not work out, then maybe I would be more reluctant to do a low bid. But it seems to me like fencing isn't that
Rocket science.
right. Thank you.
Bill, you have a comment before?
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, let me just finish this calculation real quick here, sorry.
While you're doing that, can I make two quick comments?
Go ahead.
First of all, the contractor's not local, okay? If you have a warranty issue, how are you gonna fix it?
He is local for 2 years.
He's a Pennsylvania, from what I was told, is he's down here because he's taking advantage of the hurricane. And so as soon as business dries up, he's gone. Once we have a problem with the fence on a warranty issue, good luck.
Good point. Let's go to your question on project manager. How do you go about finding one of those, and what does it cost?
Well, I don't think we have the answer. Go ahead, Bill.
So there's a couple different approaches that we can take, John. One is we can work with Associate to hire a certified project manager on a contract basis, and they would be, let's say, a 1099 employee to the association, contract employee to the association that would oversee any major project that we sign a contract with them to look at. That's one approach. The other approach is to talk to Associate about them bringing on a resource that they would use across multiple communities that we would, obviously, that probably would end up being part of our longer-term payment structure with Associate. So there's a couple different ways to take care of, to get a qualified person in place to do that. We just need to first decide if that's, given that some of these six-figure projects that we're engaged in, if it makes sense to do that, and then work out a couple different approaches and present it to the board for review, and then obviously work with Chuck and Associate on a plan that makes sense that they can work with. And then, the typical things would have to apply. We wouldn't want to hire a resident of the community to avoid any conflict of interest and things like that. So it's something to consider, because we're spending, and also if you think about 3 to 4 years down the road, we're going to be spending upwards of $6 million to get the roads resurfaced.
Well, we're not talking about that one right now.
I understand, but the point is that some of the projects are not going to be, I don't keep picking on the bocce court.
We're not talking about a full-time project manager.
No. It would just be on a contract basis, and you may be, depending on the scope of the project, it could be 10 hours a week, it could be 5 hours a week, but that they would be
Their job is to be true project manager. You put a plan in place, you identify the risks, the contingencies, and a really good project manager is someone that resolves issues. So, you know, and that takes, and to Todd's point, that takes some of the burden off of Chuck and Brian in terms of they can concentrate on operations while this person is chasing down, well, why didn't you go get the permit to start the work here? And follow up with the vendor on something like that.
May I?
Of course.
I share Todd's concern and Bill's concern that we're asking Associate to almost manage a project that is equal to our annual budget, and we're asking them to 3.8 million has been thrown around at some point to tear out and replace what is damaged, including landscaping when we get to that point, all Ian related, and we're asking Associate to operate 2 budgets of the same size without considering what that does to their workloads.
I got a question.
Yeah,
I guess my question to Chuck is that something that Associate can provide? Can they provide a project manager? And is that something we can look into, or do we need to go out and find one on our own?
I'd have to ask Heather to see what, I know they have a lot of relationships with a lot of different contractors. So I would definitely ask her. I'm sure they have something. I mean, I've worked with project managers on a multi-million-dollar roof project in Sandoval, and you know, there are project managers out there that can dedicate their time to this. But Andrew's absolutely right. I mean, don't get me wrong, when you say associate, it's really Chuck.
Yeah.
You know, here we are talking about unwinding, you know, the stormwater. We've just approved an RFP that's going to be a massive drain on Chuck. So, and I have to keep the rest of the balls up in the air and special assessment. So I'll be the first one to tell you, you know, I'm not going to open my shirt, there's an S on my chest here. But I love a challenge, but this is, I appreciate the help.
Any idea of what this cost?
I think it's too premature to
Yeah.
answer that, John, but I hate to jump into approving a bid for a fence without doing what we should be doing to make sure it's done right the first time.
It's just a fence.
It's not just a fence, I'm telling you. Look at this for just a second, if you would. The contractors from out of state, here for a short time, your 2 local contractors that bidded this, one who's in North Fort Myers and one who we're very familiar with that did the renovation of the basketball court and pickleball tennis courts, More Sports, are both Florida local contractors. That's a red flag. Hello? And I'm just saying, pump the brake on it. Look at a project manager. It makes all the sense in the world. It takes the heat and pressure off of him, and we can guarantee that we can deliver a product of repair and renovation to this community that is quality, and that's where I'm driving it.
Okay, would you, go ahead.
I just want to put a couple different data points out. So if I understood the offer from the vendor, that they would do about a third of the work before they would continue.
Not a third. Well, a third before we bill for a third, they would do that long fence.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a
Yes.
third of work. That's a
So
third.
that is, just to put it in perspective, that would be about $45,000 or about 3% of the total assessment associated with Ian. So I just think it's a bit, you know, there is a bit of a risk, but it's not a huge risk compared to the total amount of money.
This contract, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, if they perform, we're ahead of the game. If not,
Yeah.
we jeopardize 3% of the total assessment at
Well,
that point.
see, I haven't had a lot of experience working with project managers except in computer projects.
Right.
I work for IBM. But what you don't want is a new sheriff coming to town taking over. Right?
No, I
So-
agree, and I don't think we're talking about some, you know,
Yeah.
some Bechtel engineering type, super
Yeah.
project manager
Yeah.
type thing. No, we're looking, no, but I think as the general philosophy, a project, for these large-scale, 6-figure projects, it's a prudent
it's a prudent way to provide oversight and add muscle to associate.
How much it costs?
Yes.
Suppose it costs us 50 grand.
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be 50 grand, it would be based on an hourly rate, and we would control the billables, and and when I worked under a 1099 contract, I had they gave me like a half day's notice to shut things down, so we have absolute control over the expenses associated with it.
Okay, could I ask then two of you to take the ball on this and try to get us going with or without a project manager, get some quotes and so forth in time for the next board meeting? And I'd like to ask you.
Find two of us.
You and Bill, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure, right?
Okay.
It's already been 7 months, now make it 8 months. and
Okay.
then-
So one thing I would suggest as a compromise is that if we agree to start looking at getting a project manager in place, I think we can take a risk as a community to start this fence work. Yeah.
So you can do it in parallel.
Parallel.
What do you think of that?
I don't have a problem with it, but like I said, I don't want to put a fence up and we find out that we have an erosion issue, an irrigation issue, and a landscaping issue that's going to require them to take the fence down.
So how soon would this, so I have another question, how soon would this work start if we signed the contract tomorrow?
They said they're available.
So the reality is we're either
We're
risk.
talking days.
Yeah, we're talking, so we either put some of the fence at risk, or we wait another 30 to 45 days.
I kind of like to go get it done. Bill?
Well,
And let's go for the project manager idea as well, but can we do it in parallel?
I think I'd be okay with that. I think Todd's a bit concerned about the risk that we may have to end up redoing that portion of the fence.
We don't know what we have in
We don't
regards
know.
to the issue of erosion
I'm
and
not
irrigation. Am I right?
Fence.
I mean, we haven't got any idea from who we're looking for as far as bids on the irrigation that it's going to take, especially on the surf side of things. I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah, I have a Crawford quote for the irrigation on Surfside, but again, I'm looking for additional quotes.
Just for kids, what's the cost?
Is that intertwined with the fence?
Of course.
It's adjacent to the fence, right?
It runs right by it.
Right under.
So, I mean, this is kind of like putting tires on a car before you got, that's a bad analogy, but you know what I'm trying to say. Why would you do this before you make sure you've got it handled right?
It's 30,000, but that's a Crawford number.
Which is typically not. Hey, what do you think, guys? What do you think, Dave?
I think that we should give them a chance along the surf side. My only question is, does the city do inspections on fence installations?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing.
Inspection.
No.
City
Does it?
inspection.
Okay.
I just didn't know.
And the other thing is in terms of the irrigation, you're gonna want that fence installed before they correct the irrigation, because when they start digging holes, you don't wanna rip it up irrigation that was installed brand new.
I'm no expert, and that's why I'm saying we need somebody who can give us that expert opinion, because there's an erosion issue as well, David.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I agree with maybe go ahead and let them start the Surfside fence while we look at getting some type of project manager involved to oversee that and everything else we have to do. But we might as well see what kind of work these people do.
Would you put that in form of a motion?
Yes, I put a motion that we go ahead and start Surfside with
Excuse me, what's that fence?
vendor Skyway,
Okay.
and at the same time, we,
What is it?
No,
Can there be a performance bond attached to this?
Probably not for that size of a dollar amount.
I've
Usually,
done performance bonds for $50,000 and less.
Talk to us later, please. Okay. A good idea, talk to us. Okay, do I hear a second?
I second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed?
what about Stan?
It was 5-2.
Stan.
Motion carried. Oh, Stan, I'm sorry. Do you vote for or against this motion?
He's not there.
You're right, okay. The motion is to proceed with the fence, at least for the Surfside side of it, and at the same time, start investigating the project manager.
Okay, I'll vote for it. We gotta get this done, I mean,
Okay.
it's been long now.
Who's
All right.
who's the second?
I second.
Brown seconded, and we have a vote of 5-2.
5-2.
Yes, passes. All right, next item. Violations. No,
Private landscaping.
Crawford cleanup.
Very similar to what we had in place last year. It's an agreement with Crawford that in the event there's, God forbid, there's another hurricane, we get preferential treatment, and this contract, they've listed all their hours and detailed information, and it's basically the same thing that you had in place last year.
I will make a motion to consider this contract.
Second.
I didn't hear the motion.
Consider this Crawford contract.
Okay.
Can the president second anything? I don't know if he can or not.
I don't have my Robert's.
I'll second it.
Okay. Good.
Discussion. I'd say that one reason we want to do this is because last year when Kathleen did it, it put us in good shape, so we actually were first on the list after a hurricane. So this really positions us early if we need them again in a disaster. So I think it's smart. It doesn't cost us any money now, and it's the right thing to do.
Bill, could we make, they're going to be required to sign the vendor agreement, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, they're an active vendor.
But the contract vendor agreement that risk management came up with,
Yeah, we can make
okay,
that.
I'm fine with it then.
That-
As long as they didn't sign it previously, obviously, because it's relatively new, but if they signed that, I obviously
Okay.
all for it.
So I apologize, I should have had these numbers ready.
We have a motion on the table and it's seconded. Have we got more discussion about the motion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the rates.
Okay.
There is a slight increase in the labor rate,
Yes.
okay? And there is a 20 to 30% increase in the dump fees. So those are the changes. So if we had something of the same magnitude, that would have obviously a much more significant impact.
It doesn't obligate us.
It does not.
Does not obligate us.
It does not.
It puts us in position to use them if we need them, which I think is smart.
Right, and I just think in terms of having a good discussion about this, I think the biggest issue that we had with Crawford they did an excellent job of getting the personnel on the property, cleaning up, and getting us in 45 days to the point where, a lot of debris was removed. The problem that Associate had to deal with, that I was party to, was that they did a very poor job of accounting for their time until we got one large invoice from them. That when we challenged it and they gave us their hours, they were inaccuracies, and we had to go back and get them to revise based on the two pieces of information they gave us were not syncing up, okay? So I think we need to, if we are in this situation again, we need to have an agreement with Crawford that they don't proceed beyond a certain dollar value unless they get an okay from us.
Okay.
Because I think it's the only way, because we got presented with essentially a $500,000 bill at the beginning of November when we did a WTF on it. Excuse my French.
Okay. I understand what that means. So, are you amending the motion, or are you?
No, I think we need to give direction to Associate that this contract has got to be accepted with the contingency that there is a
I'm going to say, $250,000 limit before and they have to document that and get approval to proceed beyond 250 grand.
Perfect.
Ready for the question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Sorry, Sam. I forgot you again. Okay.
That's all right.
Okay.
Everybody know, right, Sam?
We need to come here and meet with us, man. You gotta quit, sit there drinking beer and stuff, all right? Yeah. I know you are, yeah. Okay, we have a presentation on violations.
Yes, in your packet, you have 2 violations that are being presented for fine. I don't know if you want me to get into details, but it's basketball hoops out in the roadway.
I make a motion for approving the fines.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Opposed, no? There's no, it's motion carried. Second item.
I think we're up to discussion of aluminum roof.
No, you had two.
Oh, no, there are actually 2 in here.
Yeah, you had two. What was the second one?
Same.
Same.
Oh, same thing.
Both are-
Okay, all right, thank you.
Both are basketball.
Okay, thank you.
We're efficient, John.
Now, the next one is aluminum roofing. When we were encouraging the board to change the rules to allow additional roofing materials back after Hurricane Ian, those who proposed it proposed metal. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth, and they felt there wasn't definitive enough things on coloring and things like that to properly instruct ARC so that they could make their decisions. And somehow that got morphed into steel. So my feeling is that we intended to include aluminum all along, and if we have a motion to add it, we would just be correcting a problem that we created before. Now, I will say that I would imagine that very few people are going to order aluminum, mainly because it's very expensive. But once it's up on the roof, it won't look any different. They're going to look at the same paint. You won't be able to tell the difference between that and steel. But anyway, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to amend the guidelines for roofing to include aluminum with a minimum of 26 gauge.
Okay, go here a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. So we've made some substantive changes to the design guidelines. Just need to make sure that all these changes are incorporated into the paperwork on a timely basis so that the community has the right information to make decisions on what to do with their houses.
Understood.
Can I also, the main reason that I believe we need to go ahead and include aluminum, because I did hear the presentation, I did read about it, and just because we can say no doesn't mean we should. I think if there is an opportunity for a resident to do something and they've investigated it and it works, why not say yes? So that's my main reason for making the motion that I did.
Particularly if the aesthetics
Yes,
are the same or better, right?
yes.
So I certainly would support this.
And my other comment for clarification purposes too is the color palettes remain the same for each of the neighborhoods. There's no change to that. It's the color palettes remain the same.
You were worried about the gauge. The gauge you've quoted is better than the one we're saying is the minimum.
Yes, if you word it as a minimum, as you just said.
We said minimum 26 gauge, and yours is better than
Aluminum,
that.
the minimum aluminum is 1/32, which is thicker than 26 gauge. So it has to be worded in aluminum roofing is usually 32nd of an inch, 0.032.
I got that number, the 126, from a roofing company today.
It could be so, but
The minimum of, believe me, you're gonna get it, I know what you'll do. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
What was being said, that the aluminum is not done by gauge, it's done by a different system?
That was made by one of our residents here at the meeting, yes.
So it's not gauge, what is it considered?
It was talking about the thickness, but,
Fraction inch.
So it is gauge, they are gauge?
yeah, gauge and thickness are in the same dictionary, yeah, right, okay.
Okay, so they're measured in the same way?
That was told that by a roofer today, yes. Okay.
So a roofer let us know, but we haven't vetted this. How does the ARC feel about this? Are they agreeing with the aluminum being the same or better than metal?
Some members of ARC have said that they don't want to approve it because so few people want it, and why do we want to do that for such a small number of people? But that's like this would be a rare exception. I think what we're doing is correcting an error that we made in the first place. We always wanted to include metal, and somehow that got morphed to only steel, and I think that was an error.
I understand that. I just remember how stringent our guidelines were and how much work we put into it to not really, vet this new product and do our due diligence. That's all. I just want to make sure that we're not just going to keep adding roof materials every month because the roofer says that is valid.
I understand. Okay. Are you ready for a vote?
Can I request that the specific changes to the design review guidelines that incorporates this be presented to the board at the next meeting?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So that, this is to answer to Stan's question, that we put a lot of effort into writing a very detailed description of the requirements.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we won't approve this, but I think we need to put the onus on us to have the design guidelines updated and consistent with those requirements.
Okay. I think we're saying that independent of this motion.
Yeah.
We're not delaying the motion, but we'll agree to add the guideline.
Okay.
Okay? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion carried. Get your aluminum roof.
Yes.
Okay. Parking permits, okay, are you going to cover that, Chuck?
No, you.
I am, okay. A lot of people are needing to park on the street, because of the roofing issues and having their dumpsters blocking their driveways. Some are actually having to do it because of the need for sealing the driveways, and they don't have enough neighbors with open drives next door. So we are allowing, I'm sorry, I guess we should make a resolution to do that we allow residents to park with a 72-hour pass that would be issued at the clubhouse for those purposes of roof repair, roof and driveway sealing. What do you think? I notice you're frowning. Got any problem with that?
I brought this up in January. I think it's Pandora's box. I understand the need, but it puts, let's just be honest, is enforcing parking in the street is going to be pretty much impossible for the next year or two.
If you got a sticker in your car big enough that...
How many times can I renew it?
How many times can you what?
How many times can I renew it?
If it's legitimate,
How do you know it's legitimate? I gotta have Benny coming into town.
Okay, why don't we wait till we see violations before we start worrying about violations of this?
But I think,
Yes.
John, so I think the concern is that, not that I want to accuse anybody, but the system can be gamed. And let's be honest, as Chuck's alluding to, Aunt Betty's in town. Okay, next week, Uncle Joe's in town. All right, before you know it, how are we going to check on the integrity of the request? You're going to have them prove that Aunt Betty or Uncle Joe are actually staying at the house? So, I mean, I think it puts a burden on the management team. We've got pretty clear rules now. They've got the rules that they can get a overnight parking at the parking lots here.
As well as the street in front of their house.
Street in front of their house.
But they're associated to an open ARC application. So
Yes.
if you have an ARC application, it's easy for us to look in the system and say, you're getting a roof, we see that you're getting a roof, and therefore you're requesting one 72-hour park in the street in the same direction. That rule was put in place in April of last year. Ron Spooner, I think, was the president at the time. So that's been in effect. So if you have the dumpster in your yard, you can park outside your house for 72 hours. What Todd is and Bill is saying is we can justify that by just looking at the ARC application.
Okay.
You start opening up to everybody wants to, I'm going to seal my driveway, and they're not, I'm not going to be able to check to see if they're going to seal the driveway. I don't have the staff to go out there and check to see if Todd is actually sealing his driveway as he said he was. And then what's going to happen is, you know, to game the system, it's when you have an extra person, an extra car coming in and you don't have room in your driveway, you're going to ask for this pass, I'm going to seal my driveway, and you're not sealing your driveway, you just need extra parking. So it's not associated with an ARC. I'm just saying, from an associate or Chuck Keel, general manager, I don't know if I can police it. So when it gets out of hand, you know, how are we, you know, how do we have the staff to go and check that this is happening?
Okay. What if, and this is a what if, and maybe it should be what ifs in a board meeting, what if we required some sort of a contract for sealing to be brought in order to get the,
Some people want to do it themselves.
What?
Some owners want to seal the driveway themselves.
So you're going to require Home Depot receipt?
And we would, that wouldn't, I know the one you're talking about too, and I don't think you could do that. You can't police it.
I can't police it.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're just going to be, we're going to be spending, we're going to just be doling out 3-day passes.
Okay. Oh, so we already have a rule in place that provides for parking in the street in the event of a roof repair approved by ARC.
Yes.
Okay.
For 72 hours.
For 72 hours.
Okay.
My only other comment is, I had my roof done, I found a solution, I had wonderful neighbors, and I didn't have to park in the street.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I'm not going to propose this any further. Does anybody else want to?
No.
Next item. I'd say, I want to remind everybody, those that are listening, that we see people riding on our Esplanade and our sidewalks on motorized vehicles. Please stop doing that. It's very dangerous, you know, and an electric bicycle going at full speed is a motorized vehicle. So I've seen some kids doing it, look like a lot of fun, but some of these Esplanades, you don't know what's around the corner, you might hit somebody. So we really want that stopped. Also, bicycles and scooters are not allowed on our courts. It tears them up, and we'll be giving violations for that. That's all I got. So what's the additional funding now?
Yeah, that's one. This is that. Late addition to.
Nice shirt.
You like this? Yeah. I wish I had another one. Okay. At a previous meeting, we assigned estate landscaping, secondary hurricane cleanup. The motion was, the quote was for $61,000 and change. The motion was passed not to exceed $70,000. we're at the point now where there's additional stumps and things that were underestimated, bridle path, K's, behind K's, in the swale at bridle, and we have to add some additional manpower. 8 additional days and chipping and grinding. So I'm asking for additional funding for a state to kind of finish this up.
I'm making a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Now, you heard that, Stan, the motion to approve a $28,000 expenditure for cleanup. Okay. And the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, motion made, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. We approve.
Do we anticipate that's going to be the last they're going to ask?
We approve.
98,000?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. We're going into committee reports, landscaping. Our liaison there is Dave Ott.
Actually, the committee chairperson is here to give a presentation or give her report.
Oh, good. Good to see you, Lynn.
It's good to be here tonight. I'm happy to be here to update the board with our projects that we worked on over the month of April. At our April 5th meeting, we met with Mo and Cody from Crawford and discussed their work calendar for the month. We asked them actually to, the one that goes out to print to everybody, to change the colors so we could see it a little better, because none of us could read it. They did it. We also addressed concerns about weeds in the flower beds and discussed some ideas for changing out the flowers that are around the clubhouse and also the main gate. According to our contract, they get changed out 3 times a year. So it's time to change them out again, even though they look great right now. In another month, they probably won't. At our April 19th meeting, Randy and Sonia from DT attended our meeting. At that time, we discussed our disappointment and concern with their scheduling, once again. Trimming of the shrubs are so far behind. If you look at their current calendar, it says they should be over on K's, and they're just finishing up the half of Belleville today, and that makes them over 2 weeks behind schedule. They will be working tomorrow, which they normally don't do. They normally work 4 10-hour days. At the last meeting, we pressed them to a solution to getting caught up, and we asked them to work on a Friday, and we pointed it out that they were supposed to add 3 more people to their trimming crew as of April 1st, and right now their trimming crew consists of 2 people. So because they have not been able to add the crew, we said they obviously have money in their budget, and that should be used for overtime to pull their people in tomorrow, and also I think again next Friday. We'll just continue to monitor that. We also addressed the issues about the work orders. Currently, 140 work orders were put in this month. A lot of them pertain to irrigation issues and weeds and trimming. They are getting there slowly and surely. I've got to say, I looked at the worksheet today that I got, and it looked like they are actually, it says completed. There's more completed than not completed, which is an improvement from other months. But there's still a lot of emails coming into our email that we established a few months ago, and people are still expressing a lot of concerns and unhappiness. We're also trying to help Chuck out where we can with the hurricane stuff, and we're also really happy that you approved the RFP tonight. A lot of hours went into that. A lot of people worked really hard on it, and I want to thank everybody on that committee.
Thank you.
Okay.
The Landscape Committee is an outstanding example of committees that work in Sandoval that have gotten a lot more involved with our vendors, and the results are paying off. Thank you so much. Communications?
Okay, communications, Denise could not be here tonight, so I'm gonna give her a report. Kind of went over, the last meeting, we went over the 2023 goals, which includes some obvious things such as maintaining the streaming of board meetings. We want to support the lifestyle events and sports with marketing and photography to try to get more attention brought to these things. We're still continuing to update the Sandoval website. They're also working on updating the Sandoval Cape Coral Facebook page, so that's the Facebook page that has official Sandoval information on it. It's not the gossip ones. Another thing that they want us to try to do is revive the Sandoval Today newsletter. I mean, I guess that hasn't been in existence for the last few years, and they want to try to get that going again. And I think that was a quarterly newsletter that was just information about things going on in the community and interviewing different people to get their perspective on things. Let's see. Also, the audio-visual equipment that's used here, a lot of that is outdated or no longer working, and what the committee would like to do is look into possibly selling any of the equipment to see if it's worth anything and possibly use that to upgrade existing equipment. Another thing that was discussed was when this building was put together, there was Data Ninja was a company that I guess did the wiring and things, and we have absolutely no information about what the wiring does, where it is, or any instructions on how to use any of that. So we want to look into possibly contacting this company and see if they can provide us with this information.
Okay.
Also, the number of YouTube subscribers right now is 537 residents, and that's not a really great number considering we have over 1,400 residences in here.
You talking about video box?
Yes. So we're trying to look into a way of finding out if any of those people subscribed should not be subscribed any longer, because either they no longer live in here or somehow they were an outsider that somehow managed to get into it. So we're working to see if we can identify that. And I think that's about it.
If I can add one thing, on communications, I mean, we have two special gentlemen here that donate their time every month to provide this service completely free of charge. And had we actually had to pay for this service, this would be significant. And, they don't get enough thanks for what they do, but I just want to personally thank them for all you guys, what you do as far as videotaping.
Thank you, Vic and Jack.
I'll stay.
ARC.
Is there anyone here? Yes, okay. To give the report?
We'll get to the
10-4, boss. All right, the committee reviewed 91 applications in April. We did not send any recommendations. However, we would like to propose an ARC-approved project sign to the board. This sign would be comparable to an 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10 paper mounted on a plastic stake with the words ARC approved project. It would be on white paper with the pineapple symbol and words in blue. similar to a construction permit, essentially. And we are proposing this due to the multiple emails sent to Chris and the ARC committee regarding projects being constructed.
And I'd like to make the motion to approve this sign, but it won't be a paper sign. It'll be
Like cardboard?
Whatever the sign material is that they use.
Understood, yes.
So, and they would be kept here, well, in your office or close to there. And whenever there is a project that is approved, the resident can pick up the sign here.
I'm confused.
How many signs are we talking about?
That's another great question. Again, based on the fact that we have reviewed almost 100 applications in April, however, there have been plenty of denials. So I'm hoping 50 is a good number, but that is a guesstimate.
So, and do we know what we're talking about cost-wise?
Not at all.
Well, I think maybe we better check and find the price for 50 signs. 50 signs should not be that expensive.
The research should definitely be done.
I have printed hundreds of signs when I ran for office, and 50 signs is not really all that expensive.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you have a proposal, just bring it forward. Sure.
I have also another concern, and that's aesthetics.
And that's what-
If you go down on my street, there must be 15 roofs that are being, do we really need a sign in front of every house that says ARC approved? I have a problem with the aesthetic problem of it.
So is the purpose of the sign to identify the work that's been approved or to identify the ones that are not approved?
Both.
Oh, wait.
I don't understand.
There would
So-
not
so-
be a sign if it was denied.
Well, okay, so I think so if I understand what's going on, some people are doing roofs or doing a project without ARC approval.
Right.
And they would not get one of these signs, so that would make it easier for compliance to be enforced.
It was my understanding, and I was at that meeting when the discussion took place. It is just to make the ARC approvals more positive, to give a positive light to that particular committee. They do a lot. And so we would like the residents to know that this particular committee is putting in a lot of time with all of the applications, and this was just one way of showing the approval process. I don't think the cost would be, I would be surprised if the cost was $200 for 50 signs.
Is this a proposal?
Well, I guess I'm hearing that our treasurer would like to have a dollar amount attached to the recommendation or to the motion.
Right.
So we can do this next month.
That's
And
fine.
in the meantime, I can get a,
So the only other thing I want to say is we're going into rainy season, so if we get inexpensive cardboard signs, I don't know.
not cardboard, what is that?
Buy a laminator and laminate them. Hang them in the window. Angles.
It could be comparable to what your landscapers use.
Okay, let me call order.
Yes.
This is not an open discussion, folks. I'd love to hear from you, but this is not an open discussion, please. But I'd like you to submit that in, what your request in writing before we do anything else on that one, please.
100%.
Okay.
And I did like her comment that it would be like what the landscapers do.
Yeah.
Because are we trying to give this away and get it back, which is kind of what I heard,
Right.
the direction of 50 signs.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I don't,
They would turn the sign in after the project is complete, or in X number of days, I don't even know the number of days.
in order to receive their part of their refund back or their
Yes.
deposit back. Okay.
Okay. Is that it? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess I have the next one. And is anyone here from the social committee? Good. Would you like to make,
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know.
okay,
Come on, Lucy.
She's so shy.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I know you are.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, I don't remember when we met, but we did meet very first week of April, I believe it was. I know we have another meeting coming up Tuesday
yes, we meet the first Tuesday of the month.
Of the month.
At 10 o'clock in the morning.
in the Pelican Building. I know we did discuss Mother's Day, the Mother's Day brunch, which I know Jessica has put out today. We did discuss Cinco de Mayo. We did discuss going forward with maybe a top golf outing for the community. We did discuss Father's Day. There's a couple of things in the making. Yeah, so I know Tom was recently speaking with Jessica also about some potluck dinners for like the fall, starting from September on. So all that is going to be discussed on Tuesday's meeting. So it's moving forward. It's a new committee. There's a few people that are still from last time. So there are, oh, and also the youth think tank came up at that committee, at the committee meeting in April. So we're trying to figure out ways to engage some of the teenagers to have activities for them and not just for the adults that live here. The teenagers really, you know, they need to have a positive aspect in this community and not just negative, getting in trouble for being here and getting in trouble for doing this. We did have that youth think tank meeting, and there were a few people that did attend, and there were some pretty good ideas that came out of that. So I know Jessica was looking into doing some of those things. But we do need other volunteers, like the teenage parents also. So, and the East Egg Hunt was a huge success. So, and Jessica did a really good job of that.
Thank you. You're welcome. Also, the sip and conversation, or instead of coffee and conversation, there's a sip and conversation in the evening.
There's an inkling of maybe alcoholic beverages or something, I don't know. But Andrew, I was going to give Andrew credit for that because it was his suggestion. And quite frankly, when I came on board, we had a meet and greet that was held during the day, and I had good intentions of doing a meet and greet during season when all the snowbirds came back, have it in the evening, but something got in the way. So, and I also want to mention this past coffee and conversation, I was able to ask Katie Walls from Fox 4 to come out, and a meteorologist, and have a discussion about how to prepare for hurricane season, and that was well attended, and she plans on inviting her to come back in June. So just keep that in mind.
She was fantastic.
And the thought behind Sip and Conversation was also, to Lucy's point, how can we get the teenage parents more involved? Sure. The thought process was first to get them to buy into their involvement in a general activity, and ideally that'll translate down to the teenage kids.
Great idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, the next committee is amenities. Stan, do you have a committee person here, or you want to talk about it?
No, me and Chuck went over amenities and safety and security, and he covered everything during his general manager's speech, so
Okay.
I'm good to go.
Okay, all right, thank you. And we'll go to Lakes, and instead of John Elkins, it's going to be the chairman of our committee, Jane Simonelli.
Thank you, Jane.
The Lakes Committee met on the 13th, and I just wanted to note that the agenda and the meeting minutes are on Liv Sandoval. They should be posted. In attendance, we had 5 committee members: John Elkins, the liaison, and Dave Hiller from the ad hoc committee as a guest. Dave Hiller gave us an overview of the ad hoc committee, as well as the status on the work they're doing, and John already talked about that earlier. I gave an update on our work with Solitudes, We've reviewed their monthly process, and we have contact information for a person to contact. And so we will continue to work with them and monitor their monthly maintenance. And the repair work on Lake 2 is in the permit process. That's also being done by Solitates. We received the yearly pond watch report. It's a big report with a lot of information. So as a committee, we're going to review it in depth and then try to discuss it at our next meeting. But from the first pass, it doesn't look like there's any huge red flags on any of the lakes from that. Stu has invited Ernesto, which he does the analysis on the water for the ponds review. And he's been invited to the June 15th committee meeting, which all committee meetings are open to anybody in the community. And we've asked to have that meeting recorded and broadcast. And we'll advertise that more as we get closer to the June meeting. Our next big items for our next committee meeting is to make updates to the committee page, the Lakes Committee page on Live Sandoval. There's still some old information and some broken links there. And the other thing we'd like to do is send out a newsletter from the Lakes Committee, maybe quarterly, do an introduction, and send that out to the community. That's it.
Thank you, Jane, very much. Neighborhood reps there's not really a big report from neighborhood reps because they don't operate like normal committees. Neighborhood reps are there to meet and get information from Chuck and from us and to interchange information with each other. They've met regularly once a month, and there's not, other than the fact that they got reports and discuss the issues of Sandoval, there's not really a committee to report. So next would be Finance, Bill.
Okay. The Finance Committee held their weekly meeting this past Tuesday. In attendance were Rob Heron, Colleen McCracken remotely, Lynn Smith, Sean Kinney, who's acting as chairman, who was not able to make today's meeting, Judy Masseth, and myself, and Tom Richards. At that meeting, we first went through a review of the Hurricane Ian expenses. We talked about the approval of the SBA loan and the process that we were going through for the review of the terms and conditions of the loan. We had a preliminary discussion on assessment options for the community, and we set up May 9th as a follow-up Finance Committee meeting to work on the assessment recommendation to present to the community. We then focused on the expense reviews, and in addition to some of the issues that I raised in the meeting today, we have some follow-up items that were identified in the area of salaries and internet expenses that we need some investigation on for the next Finance Committee meeting to talk about, see if they need to be reviewed with the community. We also, I have to give a shout out to Rob Heron on his own initiative. He reached out to PPB, Pacific Premier Bank, to understand their sweep account capabilities, and I will be providing him with a list of the other partner banks that Associate can work with, and he's going to do some similar activity and report back to the Finance Committee so we can start seeing if there's some different ways to manage our cash accounts going forward. And as I said, our next meeting is the 9th, and depending upon how that goes, it may require a second meeting before the proposal is presented to the community.
Okay, thank you. Covenants, Andrew.
Yes, Covenants Committee met last Thursday. I did share a little bit of the information within email, but we had a meeting just to get a better understanding of what the role of that committee is going to be this year. And I think it's they're in a pretty clear understanding now that they are acting as an appeal or review board on decisions that are made as presented, like tonight, Chuck presenting those violations, then being issued fines and potentially even amenities removals. Those are things that the committee is going to hear, and they understand that they get an up or down vote on what we pass. It is not something where they will edit or modify those decisions that are made. In addition, we did get into a conversation of Chris Harris's capacity at the moment, and Chuck shared that a little bit with what the concerns of the committee were, was that is Chris spending enough time focused on violations so that we continue to maintain the integrity and value of our properties and the community as a whole, and I think that's what led to some of Chuck's discussion. So those were the two primary reasons for the committee's meeting last week. We had no violations, obviously, to hear for appeal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Risk Management, Todd Reinhardt.
Thank you. Bill Dunker, who's the chair, is on a cruise, so he could not make it this evening.
Lucky guy.
Lucky guy. I would like to say that Bill Dunker's done a heck of a job putting us in the spot where we are now. Sometimes it's painful. I know that it is for Chuck. Trying to put contracts for vendors together, but we finally have a process in place that protects our HOA with our vendors to make sure that we close any liability loopholes. So I know Bill donates a heck of a lot of time looking at things and making recommendations, so he deserves a big pat on the back. In addition to, I just want to do a quick shout out that Craig Snyder, who's also part of the committee, who's an insurance professional, he has been working with Chuck and has been working with the insurance company and the adjuster, and has provided them additional documentation in order to get us more insurance proceeds back from the claim. That particular dollar amount is not known at this time, but it's a significant amount that will help reduce the burden of the damage. But Craig has been fantastic in working that with the adjuster and the insurance company. So that's all I have on risk management.
Thank you. And risk management, as you all know, in the past has been primarily insurance, but now they're also looking at contracts. So two really big jobs. Thank you. Strategic planning, Tom.
This is easy. Jerry Kern.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right. So the Strategic Planning Committee, they've been meeting weekly since the last board meeting, and part of our goal from the board initially was just to put together a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. You know, what are the major milestones and major projects that Sandoval needs to address in the next 3 to 5 years. When we first heard about that, we were like, that's a lot to work on, and we're not even sure how to accomplish that. But we've got a lot of good folks that are on the committee, and one of the things that we right away recognize is that our committee isn't the knowledge experts. You know, we're going to be looking at the Lakes Committee, we're going to be looking at Social Committee, and so forth, because those are the folks that have the area expertise in their respective passions in order to say, this is what we need for our community in these areas. So one of the things the Strategic Planning Committee felt was important was that first of all, we felt like we need a true mission statement that represents who is Sandoval and why do we have a board and what do we think the current status and status of the board is. And I think I presented that to the board. I hope everyone's received that and had a chance to review that. For those of you that haven't heard it, I would like to take the opportunity to read that briefly, knowing that this is still under review. We're looking for input specifically from the board for recommendations for improvements. So while it's not etched in stone, it's what we are currently operating on. And as we move forward and we talk to some of our committees, we'll actually be looking at potential revisions to this. But this is what we felt was the overall governing rhyme or reason of who are we as Sandoval and what is our primary expectation of the board? Why do we have an association board? And we felt that is to preserve and protect the beautiful resort style community that is Sandoval, provide amenities with recreational and social activities to fit the diverse community needs in a safe environment for all homeowners. Felt that that seems pretty straightforward, standard, and I think that covers most of the critical areas of what we think we are as a Sandoval community, and I think that's pretty good, goalpost or whatever for the board to be held accountable to some extent. But the second part of that is we also feel like that's not bad of who we are, but the second big focal point is who do we want to be when we grow up? What is our goal? Where do we want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and what should our committees be looking at and focused on and contributing to in order to achieve that goal of where we think we want to be a better place in the next 3 to 5 years. So the vision statement that we've put together and what we're ultimately going to ask a lot of our committees to think about of the efforts that you're doing, do your current projects, do your current efforts contribute in that? Or do we need to modify what our expectation is because maybe it isn't quite in line with what the committees are believing and what the board believes. But the vision statement that we came to was to keep Sandoval a preferred gated community and, quote, the place to live in Southwest Florida by meeting and striving to exceed homeowners' expectations while protecting the community standards and property values in a culture of trust. So those are the two primary statements we've put before the board. We've asked the board to take a look and review that, offer up any suggestions that they may have. And our next endeavor action item is going to be on Monday the 1st. We've invited all of the committees, all the chairpersons. We're going to take a lot deeper dive into exactly what our vision and thought process for the strategic plan will be. What is it? How much work is that going to be for the various committees, but what's the bigger picture plan of how we're going to get there? Because it's not something that the strategic planning committee is going to be able to just, hand out and do on their own. We're going to have to reach out. We're going to have communications with our various committees and community and the board in order to get this together. But I think once we've got that strategic plan, as projects are coming before the board can kind of look at that with a better perspective to understand that this project 100% attributes to where we think we want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think all in all, it has quite a few number of benefits to it. So we'll explain all of that. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on it today. But the committee has definitely been put in a lot of time and effort thus far. And I think we're in a pretty good spot. But I think where we're at now is exactly that. We're going to be with the meeting on Monday as an introduction, and then our committee will be scheduling time and opportunities with the various other committees moving forward to figure out, get a little better understanding of what each of the other committees are doing, as well as how that contributes to the overall strategic plan. And we were hoping to have that wrapped up and put in place. I believe we were shooting for the June board meeting. We would like to have that available. So that's what the strategic planning committee's been up to. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
Mr. President, not only is he dressing sharper because he has a job now, but Jerry deserves a lot of credit. He's put a lot of time and effort into this, and we meet weekly, and so thank you for your effort. We obviously have the right guy directing it, so that's great.
Thank you, Jerry, and all members of the committee. Our next meeting date is the last Thursday of the month, May 25th. The meeting is adjourned, and we now are open for any additional resident comments. Yes, sir.
Thinking about the fish problem, and then thinking about the youth, the teenage problem, maybe 2 birds with 1 stone here. Put together a fishing derby. Nobody can hear me?
A good idea.
Yeah, please.
Did everybody hear me or no?
Okay, all right. Hey, you think we need a performance bond?
Not for a fishing derby, but
A fishing derby.
Oh, fishing derby. Oh, you mean for the fish?
for the fish. Yeah, you want to hear that?
That's a great idea.
You want the
Jane?
teenagers to get involved? I'll go up there if you want.
Good. No.
So the question is, the fishing's supposed to be catch and release, but if we want to
No,
get rid of the
no,
trout,
It's not, if it's an armored catfish, you don't release it, you kill it.
We're gonna
Is
kill
that
them.
legal? I don't know.
No, we will modify that rule for those fish.
Sure, yeah. Let's get it for teenagers, have an open derby, maybe get a little money put aside for that, for first, second, third prize. And maybe get some sponsorship from Dee Dee's Bait and Tackle or sporting goods stores or whatever, but just put together a derby. You want to get rid of the fish and you want the teenagers to be involved at the same time, maybe it's two birds with one stone.
They're not gonna respond to a rod and reel very well. The best way to get them is usually with a hand spear or a gig.
All right, let's have
The time of day is early morning, that's when they're docile, when they come out in the morning. And, why are you saying that? You don't like spear?
I think the teenagers will love, give them a bunch of spears.
Unless it's got a better way to get rid of them.
What's that?
That's all I got.
Okay, that's a good idea. Jane, why don't you take that one for the Lakes Committee and do, take one
Look
together?
into a fishing derby.
Yeah,
Definitely look
sure.
into that,
Yeah, let's do it. Work with the social committee, let's work, I think that's a great idea. Now, they've tried to net them, but that's all the other fish too. And they stay on the bottom, so it's not, you can't telephone them, you shock them, because they sink. They don't float like other fish if you shock the water, you kill everything but them. Okay. Any other comments? Meeting's over. Okay. Thank you, folks.
I need, Chuck,